Your assignment is to make the dream game. You're going to pull together the greatest studios in the world to assemble the perfect game for you. The criteria are as follows: graphics, ambience, soundtrack, gameplay, level design, and multiplayer. So for example, if you think Nintendo should be the studio that makes graphics for your game, that's what you're going to tell me why below. You could say it's because I like bright and colorful palettes, and I think that they would do great making another game that's not Mario, that's bright and whimsical and fun. Or you might say, man, they do so much with that Nintendo Switch hardware. I can't wait to see what they can pull off with PlayStation hardware or PC hardware. That's for you guys to sound off below in the comments, and obviously read through my criteria and to let me know if you think I'm right or wrong. But I think I have a pretty solid idea. The one thing I want to point out is when I was building my dream game, I actually don't even know what the game would be. I don't even know if I care. I just want these studios working on it. Now, if you have an idea for what your dream game is, put that in the comments below too, because it might kind of help explain why you picked the criteria that you picked. But me going into it, I didn't really have a game in mind. I just thought of elements of each studio that I thought did it better than any other studio, and that's what I put in today's video. I'll timestamp all those below so you could jump to each individual section and think about what I said. And like I said, when you're down there subscribing and looking through the description, which talks about my criteria, scroll a little bit lower, throw yours in there. I'm really curious to hear what you think about. I've asked some of my friends this informally. I've gotten some really interesting answers. There are no wrong answers, by the way. So you just got to have fun with this one, okay? All right, here we go. Building your dream game. First criteria, graphics. Now, when I thought about graphics, I was like, man, I really wanted to give this to From Software because their graphic design is next level. The Dark Souls ambiance, the Elden Ring ambiance, Demon Souls, Bloodborne. It's got this very dark gothic feel to it. The enemies are wild. The designs are ridiculously over the top, but they suffer with actual graphic performance. They have this really bad frame pacing issue, which hasn't been solved on consoles, and they struggle to get 60 frames a second. You know me, I'm a 120 FPS snob. So From Software did not get the nod. I gave it to Insomniac. I gave it to Insomniac for two reasons. One, Insomniac has really leveled up their gameplay design with the latest batch of the Marvel games like Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Their attention to real-life detail is insane. When you're swinging around the streets of New York and you see all the different cars and the buildings and the park design and all the environments that you're going to go through and explore, the museums and all of these things, they look so vibrantly good and clear. And they also have nailed really high graphical fidelity, being able to run 120 frames per second, being able to give you a light ray tracing 60 frames per second mode. I think that Insomniac is pushing the envelope in game design in terms of graphics really farther than any of their contemporaries, maybe with the exception of Nintendo, like I gave in my example at the beginning of the video. But to me, Insomniac has to be in charge of the graphics of my game. Ambience. When I was thinking of ambience, what does the world need to look like? What games do I want to replicate that? What game did I finish and say, man, I need more of that in my life? And I've narrowed it down to two. I was going to go with Square Enix because I absolutely love what they've done in the fantasy universe on any of their Final Fantasy games. Even Visions of Mana, I'm only about 4 hours in right now, but even in Visions of Mana, having so much fun walking through that world and exploring and understanding that ambiance. I really thought I wanted Square Enix, but I couldn't make a game list without including From Software. So that's who I had to include. The ambience of a From Software game, the fact that there's not a lot of these open world hubs that have lots of NPCs walking around, the fact that you always feel like you're the last man on earth at every single corner, the larger than life castles that you feel like you're just so small and not a part of, the fact that the music is kind of non-existent until it really matters and flares up. From Software absolutely nails it. Soundtrack. This is actually the whole criteria that made me think about this list to begin with. And as I've been going through and spending money on the iTunes store like a madman the last couple weeks, scooping up some video game soundtracks, absolutely 100,000% Square Enix. If you look at the Final Fantasy soundtrack, whether it be any of the old Final Fantasies, even back Final Fantasy like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you look at Visions of Mana, you look at Secrets of Mana. I did a video talking about how impactful their music is. Square Enix's soundtracks are always larger than life, large orchestras. They always have a rolling orchestra tour where they go around. I'm actually going to see the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth soundtrack being played at Dr. Phillips Center here about a month from now, month and a half from now. So excited. That music just hits me in the feels, and that's the whole reason I started this entire Build Your Dream game, because I think, man, if Square Enix could make the soundtrack on every game I've ever played, I would have to buy like 10 phones because I wouldn't have enough memory because I'm downloading these things so quickly. Gameplay, I have to go with Naughty Dog. When I thought about gameplay in terms of just overall polish and feel, was I in total control of my character? Were the mechanics that were put in place, did they feel good? If there was stealth involved, or if there was like using a grappling hook involved, or driving around, did it feel real? Did it feel lifelike? Did the guns handle the way they should? Did melee combat feel good? Was there a give and take to the ebb and flow of movement and combat in that overall design of gameplay? And Naughty Dog just crushes it. The Last of Us 2, really by themselves could honestly be the two games. Honestly, Last of Us 2, whether you loved or hated the story, I was on the latter, you can't help but say, boy, was the reloading, the on-the-fly crafting, the sneaking around and picking up materials, the way you fought, the way everything felt so visceral. That gameplay was awesome. It's one of those games that I go back from time to time and I don't even beat. I don't want to beat it. I don't want to go through that story again, but I just play a random level because it feels so good. And then I'll play a game where it's like a third-person shooter and the aiming's kind of off. It's a little wonky. And I go, oh, this just isn't that great. That is not a Naughty Dog game. Naughty Dog games are chef's kiss in terms of gameplay. That's absolutely who I want to work on mine. Next is level design. Thinking about worlds that you go and explore, whether it be single player maps that are even linear based, or open world maps that are truly open world, or maybe corridor driven, or maybe have, major hubs that kind of fan in and out. Even the multiplayer maps. Which studio constantly delivers on level design? Without a doubt, it's Arcane Studios. Now, hold up. I know you're going to say, but Jim, what about Redfall? Yeah, I get it. They had some stinkers. I didn't even play Redfall. But if you look back at Arcane Studios, you look at Dishonored, you look at all the Dishonored DLCs, even the sequel to Dishonored, you look at Prey, you look at Deathloop, those level designs are unlike anything I've ever played. The way that they loop and spiral around, they even kind of farmed out some of their level design to Wolfenstein when you had the Wolfenstein sequel where you get your head cut off, which was so stupid. But you look at all those games, right? And you look at that really crisp, clear design philosophy of how you find a door that sneaks into something else. This tiny little corridor opens up into another large area. And in game after game after game, they absolutely crush the idea of a fully explorable world that you want to just get lost in for hours. And that, to me, is Arcane Studios. And last, and potentially certainly least, depending on if your game has multiplayer or not, you may cross this one off your list if you're going for a pure single player experience, but I'd like to believe that my game has a light multiplayer component to it. After you have a nice, rich narrative that has a phenomenal gameplay and graphics and storytelling, standing ovation, now you could do something with your buddy. And that something is going to be on the backs of Ubisoft. I know. Ubisoft has been laying a lot of goose eggs lately. Their multiplayer is always been phenomenal, though. And I really look back to the golden era of The Division and The Division 2 and the Warlords of New York DLC and all the stuff that came with that. The multiplayer was crisp. The sound design in terms of like the built-in voice comms was good enough. It had a pretty good progressive system in terms of like getting decent loot that maybe felt a little grindy at times, but I feel like it had a risk or reward component to it. Even back to the old Assassin's Creed games that had multiplayer, where you would go around and have to assassinate other people without being caught. All done so well. And I think when I think of Ubisoft, I'm going back to that era of Ubisoft. I'm not going to the modern stuff. I'm going back to like the legacy Ubisoft, like those Assassin's Creed games, Division 1, jumping into New York with your buddies for the first time. The way that the characters leveled up and scaled down automatically. So you just played. It did all the math and the computation behind you. It just worked. Even For Honor. You know, the first couple seasons of For Honor, I've fallen off from that game, but even the first couple seasons of For Honor were just so good. So there you have it. My dream game. Insomniac, From Software, Square Enix, Naughty Dog, Arcane Studios, Ubisoft, working together in concert, making the dream game. I don't even know what that dream game is, but if it came out, I would be the first one in line to buy it, and it better have a collector's edition. I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on my list. Share a list of your own with me as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.